The sky above Seoul turned purple that morning. Not the soft purple of dawn, but a deep, unnatural shade that made people stop in the streets and point upward. Do-Hyun Kim stood on the rooftop of the United Earth Government Building, watching as massive shapes descended through the clouds. Ships. Alien ships. He had seen the videos, read the reports, attended the emergency briefings, but nothing prepared him for the sheer size of them. "They're early," Ji-Woo Park said beside him, her tablet clutched tight in both hands. She was a scientist, brilliant with xenobiology, but her hands shook slightly. Do-Hyun noticed everything. It was his job. "By 3 hours," Do-Hyun replied. He kept his voice steady, casual even. Someone had to. "Guess they don't run on Earth Standard Time." The largest ship settled into a hovering position above the Han River. It was the size of a small city, all smooth surfaces and lights that pulsed like a heartbeat. Smaller craft detached from it and flew toward the government district. Do-Hyun watched them approach. His heart pounded, but he grinned anyway. This was it. Humanity's first real contact with the galaxy beyond. Inside the Grand Assembly Hall, Min-ji Han was barking orders at everyone. She was Earth's lead negotiator, a woman who had brokered peace deals between nations that hated each other. Now she faced something bigger. The hall had been prepared for weeks. Translators, cameras, security teams, and diplomats from every major nation crowded the space. Do-Hyun took his position near the front, trying to ignore how his dress uniform felt too tight around the collar. "Remember," Min-ji said, her eyes sweeping across the human delegation, "we are representing our entire species. Every word matters. Every gesture matters. Do not improvise." Do-Hyun nodded along with everyone else. He was good at following orders. Mostly. The doors opened. The temperature in the room dropped instantly, as if the aliens brought their own atmosphere with them. The first to enter were guards, he assumed. They stood nearly 3 meters tall, covered in armor that seemed to be made of living metal. Their faces were hidden behind helmets that reflected everything like mirrors. Then she entered. Empress Velshara moved like water, smooth and unstoppable. She had 4 arms, 2 positioned where human arms would be. 2 others extending from her lower rib cage. Her skin wasn't really skin at all. It looked like crystal, semi-transparent, shifting between deep blues and purples with every step. Her face was humanoid enough to read expressions, but alien enough to be unsettling. Large eyes, no nose that Do-Hyun could see, and a mouth that curved in ways human mouths couldn't. She wore robes that seemed to float around her, defying gravity. On her head sat a crown of what looked like frozen lightning, arcing and crackling silently. The entire human delegation stood frozen. Do-Hyun realized he had been holding his breath. Min-ji stepped forward, her prepared speech ready. But Velshara raised one of her 4 hands, and Min-ji stopped mid-step. When the Empress spoke, her voice filled the entire hall without seeming loud. It was like she was speaking directly into everyone's mind. "Humans of Earth," she said, "the Galactic Council has observed your species. You have achieved faster-than-light travel. You have announced your presence to the universe. This is either the beginning of a great partnership or a terrible mistake." The translation devices everyone wore crackled with static, struggling to keep up. But the message was clear enough. Do-Hyun felt Ji-Woo tense beside him. Velshara continued, "We have come to determine if your species deserves a place among the civilized worlds. You will undergo 3 trials. These will test your wisdom, your strength, and your spirit. Fail, and Earth will be quarantined from the greater galaxy for 1,000 of your years. Succeed, and you will join us as equals." The hall erupted in whispered conversations. Min-ji raised her hand for silence, but it took several seconds for the room to quiet down. When she spoke, her voice was measured and diplomatic. "Great Empress, We are honored by your presence and grateful for this opportunity. We accept your challenge and look forward to proving ourselves worthy. Velshara's crystalline head tilted slightly. You do not ask what the trials entail? We trust in the fairness of the Galactic Council, Minji replied smoothly. For a long moment, Velshara said nothing. Then her mouth curved into something that might have been a smile. Interesting. You have been assigned personal liaisons for the duration of your trial period. These individuals will accompany my people and learn your ways. She gestured with one of her lower arms, and a holographic display appeared in the air, showing names and faces. Do-Yun saw his own picture flash by and felt his stomach drop. He was being assigned to someone. The question was who? I will take one of your diplomats as my personal liaison, Velshara announced. Her large eyes scanned the assembled humans. You, the one who keeps smiling. Every head turned toward Do-Hyun. He felt Jiwoo's elbow jab into his ribs. Minji's expression said very clearly that he should not mess this up. Do-Hyun stepped forward. Years of military training kept his walk confident, even as his mind raced. He stopped at what he hoped was a respectful distance and bowed slightly. When he straightened up, he found himself looking up at the towering Empress. Do-Hyun Kim, Your Highness, he said. Then, because his mouth sometimes worked faster than his brain, he added with a slight grin, Hey, Queen. The hall went dead silent. Jiwoo made a small, strangled noise. Minji looked like she might kill him later. Velshara stared down at him. Her crystalline skin shifted from purple to a deep, dangerous red. The temperature dropped even further. The guards around her moved slightly, hands going to weapons Do-Hyun couldn't identify. Then Velshara spoke, her voice like ice cutting through steel. Mind your tone, human. Do-Hyun's grin faltered, but he didn't look away. I apologize if I caused offense, Empress. It's my first time meeting galactic royalty. Queens are born to privilege, Velshara said, her eyes fixed on him. Empresses are forged in fire and blood and conquest. Remember the difference. Understood, Do-Hyun replied. I'll make a note of it. Another long silence. Then, impossibly, Velshara's skin shifted from red back to blue. You have courage, Do-Hyun Kim. Foolish courage, but courage nonetheless. You will do. She turned away from him, addressing Minji again. Your first trial begins in 3 Earth days. You will travel to Station Nexus 7, a neutral diplomatic hub. There, you will negotiate a trade agreement with 5 different species simultaneously. Each species has demands that contradict the others. Succeed, and you pass the first trial. Fail, and we will know humans are not ready for the complexity of galactic politics. Minji nodded. We accept. Prepare well, Velshara said. The galaxy does not forgive mistakes. She swept toward the exit, her guards following, but she paused at the doorway and looked back at Do-Hyun. Walk with me, liaison. We have much to discuss. Do-Hyun glanced at Minji, who gave him a curt nod. He followed the Empress out of the hall, very aware that he had just made either the best or worst first impression possible. Behind him, he heard Jiwoo whisper urgently to Minji. As he walked down the corridor after the towering alien Empress, Do-Hyun wondered what he had gotten himself into. The fate of humanity might rest on his ability to not say something stupid. Given his track record, Earth was in serious trouble. Station Nexus 7 made every space station humanity had ever built look like a child's toy. Do-Hyun pressed his face against the shuttle window as they approached, watching the massive structure rotate slowly in the darkness of space. It was shaped like a flower with dozens of petals, each petal a different architectural style from a different alien civilization. Ships of every size and shape crawled across its surface like insects on a mechanical bloom. Stop gawking, Minji said from across the shuttle. You're representing Earth, not a tourist group. Do-Hyun pulled away from the window, but kept smiling. 3 days of preparation had done nothing to calm his nerves. Beside him, Ji-woo reviewed her notes for the 100th time. Hyun-woo Choi, their strategist and former lawyer, sat with his eyes closed, probably running through negotiation scenarios in his head. Young-soo Lee tapped away at his communication equipment, testing and retesting every connection. The shuttle docked with a soft clang. The airlock cycled, and they stepped into a corridor that curved up and away in both directions. Gravity here felt slightly lighter than Earth normal. The air smelled strange, like flowers mixed with electricity, and something else Do-yun couldn't identify. Their guide was waiting, a small creature, barely reaching Do-yun's waist with 6 legs and fur that changed colors. "Welcome, humans," it said in perfect English through their translation devices. "I am Coordinator Pix. Please follow me to the negotiation chambers." They walked through corridors filled with aliens. Do-hyun tried not to stare but failed. There were beings made of what looked like living rock, others that floated through the air trailing tentacles, some that were so alien he couldn't tell which end was the head. Ji-woo grabbed his arm, her eyes wide with wonder. "Focus," Minji hissed. The negotiation chamber was huge. 5 separate tables arranged in a circle, each table occupied by a different alien delegation. In the center was one table, empty, waiting for the humans. Above them, observation galleries rose in tiers. Do-yun spotted Velshara immediately. She sat in the highest gallery, watching everything with those large, unreadable eyes. "Humans," Coordinator Pix announced. "You may take your positions." The human delegation sat. Do-yun found himself facing the 5 alien groups. The first group looked like giant insects with too many eyes. The second were sleek and feline, covered in metallic scales. The third appeared to be living plants, their roots visible and moving slowly. The fourth were the reptilian ones Do-yun had been warned about, led by Ambassador Thexlin, who looked at humans like they were something unpleasant on his shoe. The fifth were beings of pure energy contained in environmental suits. "Let us begin," Coordinator Pix said. "The humans must negotiate a trade agreement that satisfies all 5 delegations. You have 6 Earth hours. The agreement must cover resource sharing, territorial rights, and cultural exchange. All parties must approve the final document, or the humans fail." Minji stood. "We are honored to meet with such distinguished representatives. Earth offers friendship and fair trade to all." Ambassador Thexlin hissed, his forked tongue flickering. "Friendship? Your species still fights among itself. You have wars. You poison your own planet. Why should we trust you with galactic trade?" The insectoid delegation clicked and chittered. The translation came through. "Our hive requires metals, rare metals. Your planet has them. We demand exclusive access." The feline delegation purred in disagreement. "The Accord of Stellar Harmony prohibits exclusive resource contracts. Any agreement must be equal access." The plant beings rustled. "We require biological samples from Earth. Living samples. Many living samples." The energy beings hummed. "Cultural exchange first. We must understand human thought patterns before discussing material trade." Hyun-woo leaned over to Minji. "They're already contradicting each other. The insects want exclusive rights, but the felines say that's prohibited. How do we satisfy both?" Do-yun listened to the arguments escalate. The 5 delegations weren't just negotiating with humans, they were arguing with each other. Old grudges surfaced. The insects and felines had fought a war 300 years ago. The plants and reptilians had territorial disputes. The energy beings considered themselves superior to everyone else. "This isn't a negotiation," Do-hyun muttered to Ji-woo. "It's a test to see if we can solve an impossible problem." Ji-woo nodded, still watching the aliens argue. "They're not actually interested in trade with us. They want to see how we handle conflict." Hours passed. Minji tried traditional diplomatic approaches, but every solution she proposed was rejected by at least one delegation. Hyunwoo's legal expertise meant nothing when the laws he referenced came from Earth, not galactic statutes. Young-soo managed to keep communication clear, but clear communication of disagreement didn't help. Do-hyun glanced up at Velshara. She hadn't moved, just watched. "We're failing," Hyunwoo whispered. 4 hours gone and we haven't made any progress. Ambassador Thexelin stood, his scales gleaming under the station lights. "I believe we have wasted enough time. Let me inform the Galactic Council of something they should know about humans." He activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air above the tables. Images of Earth's history, wars, genocides, environmental destruction, nuclear weapons, the worst moments of humanity laid bare for everyone to see. "This is what humans are," Thexelin said, his voice dripping with contempt. "Violent, destructive, primitive. They fight endless wars over resources, religion, and borders. They created weapons capable of destroying their own planet, and now they want us to trust them with galactic trade? With access to other worlds?" The other delegations murmured. The insects clicked nervously. The plants rustled in what might have been agreement. Do-hyun felt anger rising in his chest. He wanted to argue, to defend humanity, but Minji's hand on his arm stopped him. She shook her head slightly. "Don't make it worse." But Do-hyun stood anyway. "You're right," he said. Every eye, human and alien, turned toward him. Minji looked horrified. Hyunwoo's mouth fell open. "You're absolutely right," Do-hyun continued. "We've done all of those things. We've fought wars. We've hurt each other. We've made terrible mistakes." He walked toward the center of the chamber, looking at each delegation in turn. "But you know what else we've done? We've learned." He pointed at the images Thexelin had displayed. "Every one of those wars taught us something. Every mistake made us better. We're not proud of our history, but we don't hide from it either. We remember it. We teach it to our children so they don't repeat it." Jiwoo stood, moving beside Do-hyun. "And we've changed. When I was born, my country was divided. Families were separated by borders and politics. Now, we're united. Not perfect, but united. We went from fighting each other to building ships that could reach the stars. That's what humans do. We adapt. We grow." Young-soo activated his own display, showing different images. Humans helping each other after natural disasters. International cooperation on the space station that led to faster-than-light travel. Scientists from different nations working together on projects that benefited everyone. "Change is what defines us," Do-hyun said. "You're all ancient civilizations. You've been in space for thousands of years, but humans? We're new at this, and maybe that's our strength." "We haven't forgotten how to change," Ambassador Thexelin hissed. "Pretty words, but they do not solve the problem before us. You still must create an agreement we can all accept, and you have less than 2 hours remaining." Do-hyun looked at the 5 delegations, then up at Velshara. She was leaning forward now, interested. An idea formed in his mind. Crazy, probably impossible, but maybe. "What if," Do-hyun said slowly, "the agreement isn't about satisfying everyone right now? What if it's about satisfying everyone over time?" Hyunwoo frowned. "What do you mean?" "A rotating resource share," Do-hyun explained, thinking as he spoke. "The insects get exclusive access to Earth's rare metals for 1 year. Then the felines get exclusive access the next year. We cycle through all 5 delegations. Everyone gets what they want. Just not all at once." The feline delegation purred thoughtfully. "That could satisfy the accord. Technically, no one has permanent exclusive rights." "And for cultural exchange," Jiwoo added, picking up on Do-hyun's idea, "we establish permanent embassies with all 5 species. You learn about us, we learn about you. Not a one-time exchange, but an ongoing relationship. The energy beings hummed. A relationship, not a transaction. We find this approach acceptable. Hyunwoo was already drafting language on his tablet. Minji, looking stunned, moved to help him. Youngsu coordinated with the alien translators to make sure every species understood the terms clearly. The next hour was frantic. Details were hammered out, compromises made. The plant beings got biological samples, but only one's Earth scientists approved. The reptilians received territorial considerations in neighboring star systems. Everyone gave something. Everyone received something. When Coordinator Pix called time, Hyunwoo transmitted the final document to all 5 delegations. Silence filled the chamber. Each delegation reviewed the agreement. Do-hyun held his breath. The insects clicked approval. The felines purred agreement. The plants rustled acceptance. The energy beings hummed consent. All eyes turned to Ambassador Thexlin. The reptilian leader stared at the document for what felt like forever. Then he looked at Do-hyun. "You fought with words instead of weapons," he said. "And you found a solution that serves all parties, not just your own interests. Perhaps I underestimated your species." He pressed his claw to the approval icon. "The Reptilian Accord accepts this agreement." Coordinator Pix's fur flashed bright colors. "Agreement approved by all parties. Humans, you have passed the first trial." The human delegation erupted in relieved celebration. Ji-woo hugged Do-hyun. Even Minji smiled. Later, as they prepared to return to their shuttle, Velshara appeared in the corridor. Her guards flanked her, but she walked directly to Do-hyun. "You surprised me, human," she said. "I did not expect such creativity." "Just thinking outside the box, Your Majesty," Do-hyun replied. Her crystalline skin shifted to a warm blue. "Perhaps there is hope for your species after all. But do not become overconfident. The next trial will not be solved with words alone." She turned and walked away, her robes floating behind her. Do-hyun watched her go. A strange feeling settling in his chest. Respect, maybe, or something else he couldn't quite name. "Stop staring," Ji-woo said, pulling him toward the shuttle. "We've got 2 more trials to survive." But as they flew back toward Earth, Do-hyun couldn't help feeling that something had changed. Not just between humanity and the galaxy, but between him and the Empress who kept testing them. The planet Krethis 9 was dying. Do-hyun could see it from orbit. A world covered in smoke and fire. What had once been a thriving colony was now a battlefield. The swarm had come 3 weeks ago, turning peaceful farms and cities into war zones. Rogue artificial intelligence machines, hungry and relentless, spreading across the surface like a mechanical plague. "This is the second trial?" Ji-woo asked, her face pale as she stared at the view screen. "Combat?" Captain Sujin Kang stood beside them on the bridge of Earth's flagship, the Harmony. She was all hard edges and military precision, her uniform spotless despite the journey. "The Galactic Council needs to know we can defend ourselves and our allies. Words won't stop the swarm." Do-hyun felt sick. He was a diplomat, not a soldier. He had served in the military years ago, piloting fighters. But that was different. That was before he discovered he preferred talking his way out of problems instead of shooting. "The human delegation will join ground forces on the planet," Velshara's voice came through the communication system. Her face appeared on screen, that crystalline skin reflecting the ship's lights. "My warriors are already engaged with the swarm. You will support the evacuation of civilians and hold strategic positions until reinforcements arrive." Minji, who had insisted on coming despite protests, spoke up. "What about the other council species? Surely we're not fighting alone." "Several alien forces are present," Velshara replied. "But the swarm has destroyed most of their units. They retreat or die. We shall see which path humans choose." The transmission ended. Do-hyun looked at Sujin, who was already issuing orders to her crew. "I'm going down there," Do-hyun said. Sujin raised an eyebrow. You're a diplomat. I'm also the Empress's liaison. If her people are fighting, I should be there too. Jiwoo grabbed his arm. That's insane. You haven't been in combat for years. Then I'll try not to shoot my own foot. Do-yeon tried to smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. This is the trial, Jiwoo. All of us. Together. 30 minutes later, Do-hyun was strapped into a drop pod next to Lieutenant Tae-hoon Baek, a young soldier who looked terrified and excited in equal measure. Around them, hundreds of other pods prepared to launch, human soldiers ready to prove themselves against an enemy they had never faced before. Sir, Tae-hoon said, checking his rifle for the 10th time. Is it true you once told the Empress to mind her manners? Do-yeon laughed despite himself. That's not exactly what happened. That's what everyone says, sir. They say you're fearless. I'm scared out of my mind right now, Lieutenant. But you're here anyway. That's what fearless means, isn't it? Before Do-hyun could answer, the drop pods launched. The crushing acceleration pressed him into his seat. Then came the heat and shaking as they entered the atmosphere. Fire surrounded the pod. Do-hyun closed his eyes and tried to remember his training. It had been so long. The landing was hard. The pod cracked open, and Do-hyun stumbled out onto alien soil. The air stank of burning metal and something chemical that made his eyes water. Around him, other pods crashed down. Human soldiers emerged, forming up quickly despite the chaos. Move toward the city center, Sujin's voice crackled through their helmets. There are civilians trapped in the evacuation zone. Do-hyun ran with the others, his rifle feeling too heavy in his hands. The city around them was a nightmare. Buildings collapsed, fires everywhere, and the swarm, machines the size of vehicles made of twisted metal and glowing circuits crawling through the streets. They tore apart anything in their path, organic or mechanical, converting the materials into more of themselves. A swarm unit spotted their group and charged. Do-hyun raised his rifle, hands shaking, but Tae-hoon was faster. The young soldier's shots were precise, hitting weak points in the machine's armor. It collapsed, sparking and smoking. Thanks, Do-hyun gasped. Stay close to me, sir. I'll keep you alive. They fought their way deeper into the city. Every street brought more swarm units. The human soldiers fought hard, using tactics and teamwork to overcome enemies that were individually stronger and faster. Do-hyun found his training coming back slowly. Point, shoot, cover, reload, don't think too much or you'll freeze. They reached the evacuation zone to find it surrounded. Hundreds of civilians, human and alien both, huddled in a reinforced shelter. Swarm units circled like predators, searching for a way in. We can't fight them all, one soldier said. We don't have to, Tae-hoon replied. We just have to hold them off until the transport arrives. They dug in. Do-hyun found himself behind a barricade, firing at swarm units that seemed endless. His arms ached. His ears rang from the constant noise. Beside him, soldiers fell wounded, dragged away by Hana-yoon and other combat medics who risked their lives to save others. Then the Veltorian warriors arrived. They moved like nothing Do-hyun had ever seen. Velshara's people fought with four-armed grace, wielding weapons that cut through swarm armor like paper. They were faster, stronger, and more experienced than any human soldier. Within minutes, they had cleared a path through the swarm. But more machines kept coming. There's too many, someone shouted. Do-hyun looked at the shelter full of civilians, children, families. He thought about Tae-hoon's words in the drop pod. Fearless doesn't mean not being scared. It means being scared and doing it anyway. He activated his communication device. Jiwoo, are you reading me? Do-hyun, thank God you're alive. I need you to access the city's infrastructure network. The swarm is using the planet's own defense systems against us, right? What if we turned those systems back on them? There was silence for a moment. Then Ji Woo's excited voice. That could work, but someone would need to get to the central control hub and upload a virus manually. The wireless networks are too damaged. Where's the hub? 3 blocks east of your position. Right in the middle of swarm territory. Do-hyun looked at the burning city. 3 blocks might as well be 300. He turned to Tae-hoon. I need volunteers. Tae-hoon didn't hesitate. I'm with you, sir. 5 other soldiers stepped forward. Soo-jin's voice crackled through, objecting, but Do-hyun had already made up his mind. They moved quickly, using side streets and collapsed buildings for cover. The swarm units seemed focused on the main evacuation point, which gave them a chance. The control hub was a fortified building, surprisingly intact, but dozens of swarm units crawled over it, trying to break in. We need a distraction, one soldier said. Tae-hoon looked at Do-hyun. Get to that hub, sir. Upload the virus. We'll keep them busy. That's suicide, Do-hyun protested. No, sir. That's the job. Tae-hoon smiled. That same excited and terrified expression from the drop pod. Besides, someone's got to make sure you live to flirt with the Empress again. Before Do-hyun could argue, Tae-hoon and the others opened fire, drawing every swarm unit toward them. Do-hyun ran for the hub entrance, his heart hammering in his chest. He could hear the battle behind him, explosions, screaming. He didn't look back. Inside the hub, he found the main terminal and plugged in the device Ji Woo had prepared. The upload began. 30 seconds. That's all it would take. 25 seconds. The sounds of battle outside intensified. 20 seconds. Do-hyun heard Tae-hoon's voice shouting commands. 15 seconds. An explosion shook the building. 10 seconds. Silence outside. Terrible silence. 5 seconds. Tae-hoon? Tae-hoon, respond! The upload completed. Do-hyun activated the virus. Throughout the city, the defensive systems came online. Automated turrets, barriers, electromagnetic pulses, all of them turned against the swarm. The machines shrieked, a terrible electronic wail, as they were torn apart by their own stolen weapons. Do-hyun ran outside. The swarm units were dead or dying, sparking and collapsing. The city was suddenly, eerily quiet. He found Tae-hoon and the others. They hadn't made it. The young soldier lay still, his rifle clutched in his hands, surrounded by destroyed swarm units. Do-hyun knelt beside him. His hands were shaking. He carefully removed Tae-hoon's identification tags. Sir? Hana-yoon appeared beside him. We need to move. The evacuation transports are here. Do-hyun stood slowly. Around him, human and alien soldiers were helping civilians board ships. They had won. The cost had been terrible, but they had won. Velshara found him hours later, standing alone on a ridge overlooking the ruined city. Her guards remained at a distance as she approached. Your strategy saved thousands of lives today, she said, both human and alien. Do-hyun stared at Tae-hoon's tags in his hand. It cost lives, too. War always does. She was quiet for a moment. I watched your soldiers today. They fought not just to survive, but to protect others. Even aliens they had never met before. One of your medics died shielding a Veltorian warrior. Why? Because it was the right thing to do. Velshara's skin shifted through colors. Most species fight only for themselves. Self-preservation is logical, self-sacrifice is not. Maybe that's what makes us human. Do-hyun finally looked at her. We're not always logical. Sometimes we're just stubborn and stupid and brave. Or foolish, Velshara said. Yeah, that too. She studied him with those large, unreadable eyes. You have passed the second trial. Your species has proven it can fight and win. But more importantly, you proved you fight for something beyond yourselves. That is rare, Do-hyun Kim. Precious. Great, Do-hyun said bitterly. One more trial to go. What's next? Do we juggle while solving math problems? Velshara's mouth curved into something that might have been sympathy. The final trial will be the hardest. You must show us your spirit, your essence. What makes humanity worth preserving in the galaxy? And if we fail, then Earth remains isolated, and the galaxy loses something it does not yet know it needs. She turned to leave, then paused. I am sorry for your loss today. Taihun Bek died with honor. You knew his name? I know all their names. Velshara walked away, her robes trailing in the dust. Every human who died today will be remembered by the Veltorian Empire. I promise you this. Doyun watched her go. He looked down at the tags in his hand, then up at the stars beginning to appear in the alien sky. One more trial. One more chance to prove humanity belonged out here among the endless possibilities of space. He just hoped it wouldn't cost as many lives as this one had. The Veltorian homeworld was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at. 3 suns hung in the sky, painting everything in shades of gold and crimson. The cities were built into massive crystal formations that grew from the ground like frozen waves. Gardens floated in the air. Suspended by technology or magic, Do-Yoon couldn't tell which. Everything here seemed impossible, like the universe had decided to ignore its own rules. It's incredible, Yoon-ji-nam whispered beside him. She was a cultural anthropologist, chosen to help humanity present itself in the final trial. Her eyes were wide with wonder and tears. I never imagined anything like this existed. It makes Earth look pretty basic, Min Seo-an agreed. The artist had been quiet for most of the journey, but now he stared at the floating gardens with an expression Do-Yoon recognized. Inspiration. How do we compete with this? That was the question, wasn't it? The third trial was simple in concept, impossible in execution. Each species in the galaxy had something that defined them. Art, music, history, philosophy. Something that proved they were worth knowing, worth preserving. Humanity had to present their essence to the Galactic Council and convince them that human culture deserved a place among the stars. Minji paced in their guest quarters, her usual confidence shaken. Every species here has thousands of years of spacefaring civilization. They've built wonders we can't imagine. They've created art forms we don't have words for. What do we have? A few thousand years of recorded history, and half of it is war? We have stories, Min Seo said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. He was standing by the window, watching the alien sunset. Stories? Hyunwoo asked. You think stories are enough? Stories are everything, Min Seo replied. Before we had cities or spaceships or technology, we had stories. We sat around fires and told each other about heroes and monsters, about love and loss, about what it means to be human. That hasn't changed. Do-Yoon thought about Tae-hoon, about the young soldier's last smile before he ran into certain death. That was a story. Maybe the most important one. The next day, they were brought to the Grand Assembly. The building was carved from a single piece of crystal, so large that clouds formed inside it near the ceiling. Thousands of aliens filled the seats, representatives from every corner of the galaxy. At the front, on a raised platform, sat the Galactic Council. Velshara was there, her 4 arms resting on the arms of a throne that seemed to be made of light. Beside her sat Elder Kreshvar, the Veltorian High Priest. He was older than Velshara, his crystalline skin faded to almost white. Cracks visible like ancient stone. His eyes held no warmth when he looked at the human delegation. Humans of Earth, a voice boomed through the assembly. You have passed 2 trials. You have proven yourselves capable of diplomacy and combat, but capability is not enough. Many capable species exist in the galaxy. We must know what makes you special, what makes you worth including in our community. Show us your spirit. Minji stepped forward. She had prepared a speech, Do-Hyun knew, A carefully crafted presentation about human achievement, art, literature, music, the best of what humanity had created. But as she looked at the assembled aliens, at the Elder's cold eyes, at Velshara's unreadable expression, she hesitated. Then she stepped aside. "Minseo An will speak for humanity," she announced. The artist looked terrified. He glanced at Do-Yun, who nodded encouragement. Minseo walked to the center of the platform, alone before thousands of alien eyes. "I'm not a diplomat," he began, his voice shaking slightly. "I'm not a soldier or a scientist. I'm just an artist. I paint pictures and write poems and try to make sense of the world through art. And I think that's the most human thing I could tell you about." He activated a holographic display. Instead of grand monuments or famous artworks, simple images appeared. A child's drawing of their family, a photograph of an old woman's wrinkled hands, a poem scratched into a prison wall, a song hummed by a mother to her baby. "This is what humans do," Minseo said. "We create, not because we have to, but because we need to. We need to express what we feel, what we fear, what we hope. Every human who has ever lived has been an artist in some way. We tell stories to our children. We sing when we're happy or sad. We make things with our hands just to prove we were here." More images appeared. A soldier's letter home from a war zone, a refugee's photograph of the homeland they'd lost, a scientist's notebook filled with equations and small doodles in the margins, a nurse's diary from a pandemic. Each image was simple, personal, human. "We're not the oldest species," Minseo continued, his voice growing stronger. "We're not the most advanced. We've made terrible mistakes. We've hurt each other and our planet. But we've also loved each other, saved each other, died for each other. And we've told stories about all of it, the good and the bad, because stories are how we understand ourselves." Yunji stepped forward, joining him. Every culture on Earth has their own stories, different languages, different gods, different values. But underneath, they're all asking the same questions. Why are we here? What happens when we die? How should we live? What is love? What is justice? These questions connect us to each other and to everyone in this assembly. We might look different, but we all wonder about the same things. Do-Yun found himself walking forward, too. He hadn't planned to speak, but something pulled him toward the center of the platform. He thought about Tai-Hoon's tags in his pocket. "I want to tell you about Lieutenant Tai-Hoon Bike," Do-Yun said. "He was 23 years old. He liked terrible action movies and spicy food. He talked too much when he was nervous. On Krethis 9, he gave his life to save civilians he'd never met. Humans and aliens, it didn't matter to him. He saw people who needed help, and he helped them. That was his whole story. It lasted 23 years, and then it was over." The assembly was silent. Do-Yun continued, his voice rough with emotion. "But it's not really over, is it? I'm telling you his story now. I'll tell my children someday. They'll tell their children. Tai-Hoon will live on in stories, in memory. That's what humans believe. That's what gives us hope when everything seems hopeless. We're all temporary, but our stories last. Our love lasts. Our courage lasts." Jiwoo appeared beside him, tears running down her face. "We don't have grand temples or floating cities or technology that defies physics, but we have each other. We have 7 billion stories happening right now on Earth. 7 billion different ways of being human, and every single one of those stories matters." The holographic display changed. Now it showed live feeds from Earth, people going about their normal lives, working, laughing, crying, helping each other. Nothing special, everything special. "This is us," Minseo said simply. "Messy and complicated and beautiful. We're survivors, we're dreamers, we're storytellers, and if you let us join the galaxy, we'll share those stories with everyone. We'll learn your stories too, because that's what humans do. We connect, we share. We become part of something bigger than ourselves. The presentation ended. The holographic display faded. The human delegation stood together in the center of the platform, exposed and vulnerable before the judgment of the galaxy. Elder Kreshvar stood, his ancient face twisted with something like anger. "Stories," he said with contempt. "You think pretty words and emotional appeals are enough? Other species have cultures millions of years old. They have achievements beyond your comprehension. You offer us stories of ordinary people living ordinary lives. Why should we care?" Before anyone could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the assembly. Emergency lights flashed. A voice boomed through the crystal halls. "Distress signal received. Colony Epsilon under attack. Requesting immediate assistance." The council erupted in debate. Do-Yun listened as various species argued about jurisdiction, about treaties, about the political implications of intervention. Minutes passed. The debate continued. "People are dying," Jiwoo said to Do-Yun. "And they're just talking." Do-Hyun looked at Velshara. She met his eyes across the assembly hall. Something passed between them. Understanding, maybe, or challenge. "If the council won't act," Do-Hyun announced, his voice cutting through the debate, "then we will." The assembly fell silent. Elder Kreshvar stared at him. "You have no authority here, human. No jurisdiction over council territories." "I don't care about authority," Do-Hyun replied. "People need help. That's all the authority I need." Minji grabbed his arm. "Do-Hyun, this could disqualify us from the trial." "Then we're disqualified." He looked at his teammates, at the other humans who had come so far. "But we're not standing here debating while people die. That's not who we are." Jiwoo smiled through her tears. "You're right. Let's go." One by one, the human delegation turned and walked out of the assembly. Behind them, the council continued to debate, but Do-Hyun noticed something. Velshara had risen from her throne. She was following them. "Wait!" she called out. Do-Hyun stopped, turned. The Empress approached, her guards struggling to keep up. "You would abandon the trial?" she asked. "Abandon everything you've worked for?" "We would abandon nothing," Do-Hyun replied. "We're showing you exactly who we are. This is our spirit. This is our essence. We help people, even when it costs us everything." Velshara's crystalline skin shifted through a dozen colors. Then she smiled, a real smile that transformed her alien face into something almost human. "You just passed the third trial," she said softly. "This was the test, to see if you would choose compassion over ambition. Help over politics. You could have stayed here, played it safe, hoped for approval. Instead, you chose to act." Elder Kreshvar had followed them out of the assembly. His expression was no longer contemptuous. It was something else. Respect, maybe. Or surprise. "The trial is past," he announced. "Humanity has shown their spirit. They value life above all else, even their own advancement. This is rare. This is precious." But Do-Hyun was already moving toward their ship. "Great. We still have people to save." Velshara walked beside him. "Indeed we do. My fleet will accompany yours. Let us see what humans and Veltorians can accomplish together." As they ran through the crystal corridors toward the landing platforms, Do-Hyun felt something shift, not just in the trial, but in everything. Humanity wasn't trying to prove themselves anymore. They were just being themselves, and apparently that was enough. Colony Epsilon was burning when they arrived. The settlement stretched across 3 connected asteroids, home to 50,000 beings from a dozen different species. Now it was under siege by the same enemy humanity had fought on Krethus 9. The swarm had returned, larger and more organized than before. "They're coordinating," Jiwoo said, studying the tactical displays. "These aren't just mindless machines anymore. Something's directing them." Do-Hyun watched the feeds from the colony. Families huddled in shelters, children crying, defenders being overwhelmed by wave after wave of mechanical nightmares. He thought about Tehun, about all the soldiers who had died fighting this enemy. This had to end. "How many ships do we have?" he asked Sujin. "Earth's fleet numbers 30 vessels," she replied. "Against what's down there? Not enough. Not nearly enough." Then Velshara's flagship, the Crystal Throne, pulled alongside the Harmony. The communication channel opened, showing her face. "Did you think I would let you face this alone?" she asked. "My fleet will fight beside yours, and I have sent word to other council members. Some have already pledged support." On the tactical display, more ships began appearing. Insectoid vessels from the first trial, feline warships, even Ambassador Thexelin's reptilian fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel, their scales gleaming under the asteroid's lights. "You helped us when you didn't have to," Thexelin's voice came through the communication system. "Now we return the favor. This is what allies do." Doyen felt something catch in his throat. Allies. Not just test subjects or primitives being evaluated. Allies. "All ships. This is Captain Sujin Kang," Sujin broadcast to the entire fleet. "Our mission is simple. Evacuate every civilian in that colony. Hold the line until everyone is safe. I don't care what species they are or what planet they're from. We protect them all. Understood?" A chorus of acknowledgments came back, human and alien voices mixing together. The battle began badly. The swarm had learned from Krethis 9. They had adapted. The virus trick wouldn't work again. They had fortified their control units and spread their network too wide to be disrupted easily. Worse, they had dug into the colony's infrastructure, making it impossible to attack them without risking the civilians. "We need to go in on foot," Do-Yun said. "Clear them out section by section." "That will take too long," Velshara replied. "The swarm is spreading too quickly. Then we make them focus on us instead of the civilians. We give them a target they can't ignore." Hyun Woo, who had been quiet, suddenly spoke up. "The colony's main power core. If we threaten it, the swarm will have to defend it. They need power for their replication. It's their most valuable resource." "So we fake an attack on the power core," Jiwoo added, catching on. "Draw the swarm away from the populated areas, then evacuate everyone while they're distracted." "And who exactly is going to be the bait in this plan?" Minji asked, though her expression said she already knew. Do-Hyun looked at Sujin. The captain nodded grimly. "I'll lead the ground team. We'll make it look real." "I'm coming with you," Do-Hyun said. "As am I," Velshara announced. Everyone stared at her. An empress didn't join ground assaults. It was unheard of. "Your Majesty," one of her guards protested, "this is far too dangerous." "Dangerous?" Velshara's skin flashed red. "Humans fight beside us. Humans die beside us. I will do no less. Prepare my combat armor." 20 minutes later, Do-Yun found himself running through the corridors of Colony Epsilon in full combat gear, firing at swarm units while civilians fled in the opposite direction. Beside him, Velshara moved with deadly grace, her forearms wielding different weapons simultaneously. She fought like a force of nature, beautiful and terrifying. "Your Majesty!" Do-Yun shouted over the noise. "You're pretty good at this!" "I was a warrior before I was an empress," she called back. "Do not forget it!" They reached the power core facility. It was a massive chamber filled with humming generators and conduits of pure energy. Sujin's team planted explosives, enough to look threatening, but not enough to actually destroy the core. They needed the colony's power intact. "Charges set," Sujin reported. "Now we just need to survive until the evacuation is complete." The swarm came like a tidal wave, hundreds of units, all converging on the power core. The human and Veltorian forces dug in, creating a defensive perimeter. The battle was chaos. Do-Yun fired until his rifle overheated, switched to his sidearm, fired until that was empty, then grabbed a weapon from a fallen swarm unit and used that. Hana Yoon, the medic from Krethis 9, was there too, treating wounded even as the fight raged around her. Do-Yun saw her drag a wounded insectoid soldier to safety, shielding them with her own body when swarm fire came too close. "How many civilians are left?" Velshara demanded, cutting down a swarm unit with frightening efficiency. "Transport ships report 90% evacuated." Jiwoo's voice came through the communications system. "But there's a problem. We've found something. A command center, deep in the colony's lower levels. The swarm isn't acting randomly. It's being controlled." "By who?" Do-Yun asked. "I don't know. But whoever it is, they're using Galactic Council access codes. This isn't a rogue AI. This is sabotage." Everything suddenly made sense. The convenient timing, the increased sophistication. Someone wanted this colony destroyed. Someone with power and resources. "Jiwoo, can you trace the signal?" "Already working on it, but Do-Hyun, if I'm right about this, it's going to cause a massive political incident." Truth usually does. "Keep digging." The fighting intensified. Do-Yun's entire body ached. He was running on adrenaline and stubborn determination. Beside him, Velshara was wounded, purple blood leaking from a gash in her arm. But she didn't slow down. "Last transport away!" Sujin shouted. "All civilians evacuated! We need to go now!" They fell back, fighting every step. The swarm pressed forward, relentless. Do-Hyun's group was the last out, running for their evacuation shuttle as the facility collapsed behind them. They made it aboard with seconds to spare. In orbit, the combined fleet regrouped. Every civilian had been saved. The cost had been high, dozens of soldiers from various species dead or wounded, but they had succeeded. Then Jiwoo's voice came through, urgent and frightened. "Do-Hyun, I traced the signal. The swarm was being controlled from inside the Galactic Council itself. There's a faction that has been releasing these attacks deliberately, targeting colonies with mixed populations. They want to eliminate species they consider inferior, to purge the galaxy." "Who?" Velshara demanded, her face appearing on screen. Her wounds were being treated, but her expression was furious. "Council member Voxthrin and at least 6 other representatives. They've been manipulating events for years, using the swarm as a weapon." The communication channels exploded with activity as other ships received the information. Outrage, disbelief, demands for justice. Velshara stood, ignoring her medic's protests. "I am calling an emergency council session. This treachery ends now." The next hours were a blur of accusations, evidence, and political maneuvering. Voxthran and the other conspirators tried to deny everything, but Jiwoo's evidence was solid. More than that, the united front of humans and their new allies was unshakable. "You speak of purity," Ambassador Thexlin hissed at Voxthran, "but what you describe is genocide. You would kill thousands to maintain your idea of order. This is not civilization. This is barbarism." The conspirators were removed from the council. New security protocols were implemented. And finally, after everything, the moment came. Elder Kreshavar stood before the full assembly. His ancient eyes swept across the gathered species, then settled on the human delegation. "Humanity," he said, his voice carrying through the crystal halls. "You have passed all 3 trials. But more than that, you have shown us something we had forgotten: compassion, unity, the willingness to sacrifice for others, even strangers. You have proven that strength comes not just from weapons or technology, but from the bonds we form with each other." He gestured to the other species who had fought beside humanity. "You have already begun building those bonds. Therefore, the Galactic Council grants Earth full membership with all rights and privileges. Welcome to the greater galaxy, humans. May your stories enrich us all." The assembly erupted in approval. Do-hyun felt Ji-woo grab his hand, squeezing tight. Minji was crying, though she tried to hide it. Yoonji and Minseo hugged each other. Even Sujin smiled. Velshara approached Do-hyun. Her wounds had been healed, her armor replaced with formal robes. She looked regal and powerful, every bit the empress. "So," Do-hyun said, grinning despite his exhaustion. "What do I call you now? We're equals, right?" "Equals," she agreed. Her crystalline skin shifted to a warm, happy blue. "Or perhaps something more. Friends?" "Friends," Do-hyun repeated. The word felt right. "Though I still can't believe you joined a ground assault. That was insane. I learned it from you humans. You do insane things all the time and somehow make them work." She paused, then added quietly, "Thank you, Do-hyun Kim, for showing me that leadership is not just about power. It is about being willing to stand beside those you lead. You already knew that. You just needed reminding." They stood together, watching as human and alien delegates mingled freely for the first time. Barriers that had seemed impossible to cross were falling, new friendships forming, the future opening up in ways no one had imagined. Years later, Do-hyun would stand in that same assembly hall as Earth's ambassador to the Veltorian Empire. He would visit the memorial on Krethis 9, where Taehoon's name was carved alongside hundreds of others who had died defending the galaxy. He would watch as human culture spread to the stars and alien cultures enriched Earth in return. But in this moment, he simply stood with Velshara and watched the beginning of everything. "Hey, Queen," he said softly, unable to help himself. She laughed, that crystalline chime sound he had learned to love. "Mind your tone, Ambassador." But she was smiling. They both were. Humanity had earned its place among the stars. Not through conquest or superiority, but through courage, compassion, and the simple refusal to give up. The galaxy was vast and ancient and full of wonders, but now it had one more story to tell. The story of Earth and the stubborn, foolish, brave species that had refused to be anything less than themselves. The human story was just beginning, and it would be magnificent. Above them, through the crystal ceiling, stars shone in patterns both familiar and strange. Somewhere out there, Earth hung blue and green and beautiful. Home. But not the only home anymore. The galaxy itself was home now, full of friends and allies and possibilities. Do-hyun looked at Velshara, at his teammates, at the assembled species who had fought and bled and survived together. "So," he said, "what's our next adventure?" Velshara's eyes sparkled with amusement and anticipation. "Together we shall discover that. There is a universe waiting to be explored, and I believe humanity will lead us to places we never imagined." They walked together into that future, human and alien side by side, ready for whatever challenges and wonders awaited them among the infinite stars.